From beautiful white sand beaches to its rich and vibrant culture, Bali is one of the most famous tourist destinations in the world. But with millions and millions of people visiting the island each and every year, its existing infrastructure is struggling to keep up with demand. Traffic has become a daily headache with congested roads and citywide gridlock. This is the Bali Urban Subway. It'll be a brand new infrastructure project that aims to efficiently connect some of the most highly touristed areas on the island, potentially solving the growing problems with traffic and congestion. But what do the locals have to say about it?
Simple to take care of this island, but it has been over the years, and it's getting worse. It is not getting better.
And is it going to destroy Bali's identity? Hey, I'm your host Regis. Let's take a closer look. Most of you watching right now probably have a rough idea of what Bali is like. It consistently ranks as the most popular tourist destination in Indonesia and arguably the entire world, with millions of tourists visiting the island for its natural landscapes, Hindu temples, nightlife, and many different luxury hotels and resorts. The island destination is so famous, in fact, that sometimes people even confuse it for an entirely separate country of its own. But it hasn't always been like this. The history of Bali and how it became the tourism hub that it is today is pretty long and complex. But for the sake of keeping everything concise, we're going to be oversimplifying a lot. Before all the tourists arrived, Bali was just a peaceful island within the Indonesian archipelago, with nothing much going for itself aside from a relatively small but productive agricultural sector. Things only started to take a turn around the 60s and 70s, following the rise of Indonesia's second president, Suharto, who was much more open to the Western world compared to his predecessor. Both the economy and foreign investment into the country was steadily on the rise during his rule. It was also around this time that the island's existing airport was upgraded to an international one. This enabled international flights from nearby countries such as China, India, Australia, and New Zealand, which up to this day still make up most of the international tourist arrivals on the island. All this global traffic, of course, brought with it global attention, and most importantly, global investments, painting the island of Bali to the rest of the world as the quintessential tropical destination. With this budding tourism industry, the government continued to invest heavily in its growth and development through the 90s up until the 2000s with various infrastructure projects. It even got to the point where Balinese temples had to be demolished to make way for new hotels and resorts. The money was definitely coming into the island, but there were growing concerns that it came at the cost of the environment and Bali's own unique cultural heritage. Today, Bali remains one of the single most important tourism hubs in the entire world. International tourists continue to visit the island with as many as 4.7 million arrivals just in the first 9 months of 2024. This is more than a 20% increase from the same time last year, which only saw 3.9 million tourist arrivals. Foreign countries also continue to invest heavily, which suggests that all these tourism figures will probably continue to increase over the next few years. But despite all the wealth and prosperity that tourism has brought, some unintended consequences are now starting to emerge. One of the most pressing issues that's now made it into the spotlight is the problem of over-tourism. Bali's existing infrastructure just wasn't built for the number of people that are now visiting on a yearly basis. This has led to severe traffic congestion, especially in the most popular areas such as Kuta, Seminyak, Canggu, and Nusa Dua, which are all located within the densely populated Denpasar metropolitan area. Narrow roads and an outdated public transportation system that consists mainly of just buses, taxis, and minibuses are now struggling to accommodate the growing crowds. In fact, public transportation is so inefficient and almost non-existent that it's just easier and more convenient to use ride-hailing apps like Grab or Gojek to get around the island. So because of this, there have been various efforts in the past to reduce this severe traffic congestion. One good example of this is the 8-kilometer Bali Mandara toll road, which connects the airport and downtown Denpasar to Nusa Dua in the south. Before this road's construction, there was only a single 4-lane highway that connected the opposite sides of the island from the airport. But even with this new impressive bridge, traffic in Bali largely remained the same, which is why the government soon announced a groundbreaking new infrastructure project that they hope will finally fix this problem once and for all. This is the Bali Urban Subway. It'll be a 60-kilometer underground rapid transit system with 4 different lines that'll serve the Denpasar metropolitan area. The first 2 are currently under construction, while the remaining ones are still in the planning stage, so there aren't any guarantees just yet if they're even going to be built in the first place. Stop us if you've heard that one before. Line 1 of the project will run for a total of 16 kilometers from the Ngurah Rai International Airport up to Chamagi in the northwest. This line will be passing through some of the most well-known beaches along Bali's western coast, which is famous for its nightlife and entertainment. Line 2, on the other hand, will also start from the airport and continue southeast up until Nusa Dua over a total length of 13.5 kilometers. This area is known for its 5-star hotels, luxury resorts, beautiful beaches and cliffs, and even one of the best clubs in the world. Line 3 will run from Kuta Central Parkir to Sanur, while Line 4 will start from Renan up until Ubud to the north. The first 2 lines began construction back in September 2024 with a traditional Ngeruak ceremony, which was attended by the main governor of Bali, along with the contractors for the project. Phase 1 is expected to be completed by 2028, while the second one will be done sometime later in 2031. In total, the entire subway system is expected to cost as much as $20 billion, not a single cent of which will be coming from the Indonesian government. The Bali subway will be entirely funded by private investors, with the main company behind the finances being from Indonesia. In addition to them, construction will be carried out by 2 other Indonesian firms, and more interestingly, a Chinese state-owned company. Once completed, the system will feature a double-track system going in opposite directions. The trains themselves will have 6 carriages, each having a capacity of 40 passengers. Trains will arrive every 10 minutes, and the system will continuously run 24 hours per day. Ticket prices aren't final yet, but tourists can expect to pay somewhere between $35 and $40 for a weekly pass. Bali residents, on the other hand, may be eligible for free train rides. Construction began just recently, and the current progress is mainly focused on creating the stations themselves, as well as a main office building for the entire project in Kuta. The hardest part of the construction, which is digging the tunnels themselves, won't begin until at least April of 2025, when the 10 tunnel boring machines from one of the project's investors will arrive on site. Once that happens, the tunnels will be dug 30 meters below the surface. This depth is double the recommended provisions regulated by Bali's laws. This is being done to make sure that there's plenty of room between the busy surface and the construction work that'll be happening underground. After all, most of these tunnels will be passing directly under some of the busiest and most densely populated areas of the island. But perhaps unsurprisingly, not everyone is happy about this new metro line. Most of the problems and criticisms mainly revolve around the fact that the project may be a little too ambitious given its scope and timeline. For starters, experts are concerned that there hasn't been a feasibility study conducted on the proposal. They worry that the start of construction may have been rushed, given that the project is being funded by private investors who would benefit from the subway being completed as quickly as possible. And speaking of funds, despite already having a main investor, the project hasn't yet fully secured all necessary funding in order to complete all 4 lines. But regardless of this, construction has already begun. Aside from that, there are also concerns that the new trade line wouldn't benefit the local populations as much as it would tourists and foreigners. The governor of Bali has repeatedly stated that the needs of the local communities must be considered in the subway's construction. According to him, Balinese workers should be given priority when it comes to jobs relating to the project's construction and development. These concerns at least somewhat relate back to the fact that China's heavily involved in this project as one of the main contractors that are going to be building the subway itself. In relation to that, there's also the problem of gentrification, where local Balinese populations are starting to feel very alienated from their own homeland. Locals are divided as to their opinions on the new subway. Some people see the potential benefits of it bringing in more tourists and therefore more money and opportunities into the island, while others believe that the project could very much destroy the vibe and the identity of the island itself. At the end of the day, this is an infrastructure project that's being built because of tourists and for tourists. There's always going to be objections from people wanting to preserve the island's unique heritage. Finally, there's also the problem of building a huge infrastructure project like this one in a seismically active part of the world. The main concern for a subway system like this one would be a catastrophic collapse that could potentially trap people underground in the event of an earthquake. So, of course, earthquakes are already a given and a huge consideration when building anything on the island. The MRT in Jakarta, for example, is built to withstand as much as a magnitude 8 earthquake. There aren't any details for the Bali subway just yet, but it's safe to assume that the project's developers already have these specific environmental concerns in their minds. So, what do you think about the Bali urban subway? Do you think it'll finally be able to fix Bali's traffic problem, or will it destroy the identity of the island? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you want to see more about similar projects, you should watch our video about Hawaii's $11 billion railway. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.